Let's start with a big one. In a world with just so many choices, so many paths you could take, how do you even begin to decide who you're supposed to be? It's a huge question, maybe one of the biggest we face. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to unpack a really powerful set of ideas that were designed to tackle that very question. Think of this as a user's guide to existentialism, not as some dusty old philosophy, but as a practical toolkit for living your life right now. But to really get the solution, you've got to understand the problem first. See, existentialism didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually grew out of this widespread feeling way back in the 19th century that the world had kind of lost its meaning. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche he nailed this feeling. He described people as wandering as if through an endless nothing. That's the feeling of nihilism, right? That gut punch realization that all the old maps you used to navigate life, they were suddenly gone. And look, this wasn't just some vague feeling. It was a real historical shift. You had the rise of science, which started to challenge traditional faith. You had the Industrial Revolution, which made a lot of people feel like tiny, alienated cogs in a giant machine. And on top of that, philosophers were talking about the death of God, which really meant the collapse of a single universal rulebook for how to live. All of a sudden, we were on our own. But out of that whole crisis, something truly radical emerged. An idea that's really at the heart of existentialism, and it completely flipped the script on how we think about ourselves and our place in the universe. The idea is this simple but powerful phrase: existence precedes essence. So what on earth does that actually mean? Well, it means you weren't born with some pre-programmed purpose, some fixed nature, an essence. You just exist first. You show up on the scene, and only after that do you get to define who you are through your actions and your choices. To make this super clear, think about an object, like a paper knife. Someone first has the idea of it, its essence, what it's for. Then they create it. Its purpose exists before the object does. But for us, for human beings, it's the complete opposite. We just show up. That's existence. And then it's our job, our project, to create our own purpose, our own essence. Now, this idea has a huge consequence. If there's no predefined purpose for us, that means we are completely, totally free. And that freedom, well, it's both this incredible gift and honestly, a pretty heavy burden. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre put it perfectly. Man is condemned to be free. Condemned. Think about that word. It's like you're sentenced to be free. You can't escape it. You're thrown into the world and you are responsible for everything you become. There are no excuses. You and you alone have to decide what matters. So what do you do with all that terrifying freedom? Well, existentialism says you've basically got two paths. You can live with authenticity, which means courageously facing that freedom, owning your choices, and actively building the person you want to be. Or you can live in bad faith. That's where you run from your freedom, pretend you don't have a choice, and just fall in line with the crowd. Okay, so that's the classic philosophy. But how does this all play out for us today? How do we actually do this work of self-creation? Well, the modern answer lies in the stories we tell ourselves. Psychologists actually have a name for this: narrative identity. It's the story of your life that you are constantly building and revising to make sense of everything: who you are, where you've been, and where you think you're going. And this story isn't just a passive memory. It's something you actively create. It's the primary tool we have to manage our existential freedom. We build this story through a process you could call implotment. You know, life happens, all these experiences, big and small, but they don't mean anything on their own. We're the ones who actively weave them together into a meaningful plot. We aren't just characters having things happen to us. We are the authors, creating a coherent story that defines us. So let's bring all this home and apply it to one of the biggest parts of modern life: our work. How do we find meaning in our careers? How do we make our jobs feel like they matter? Well, it turns out we do it by writing a story. And hey, this isn't just a nice idea. There's actually data to back it up. A 2019 study from Cambridge University Press looked at the actual stories people told about their work lives to figure out how they made them feel meaningful. And what they found was fascinating. The single most powerful theme, the one people used most often to find meaning in their work, was personal agency. In other words, they told a story where they were the protagonist, the one in the driver's seat, making decisions, overcoming challenges, and steering their own career. This right here is the existential project in action today. Crafting your own professional story, seeing yourself as the agent of your own career. That's how we take that huge, terrifying freedom and use it to create meaning, purpose, and our own unique essence in the world.
Which brings us all the way back to you, because this project of defining yourself, it's never really done. You are both the author and the main character, and the book is still being written. Your story isn't finished. So the only question left is, what's the next chapter?